So good day everyone. Welcome to midterm and welcome to your second topic for biochemistry lecture. So for today we will be discussing lipid chemistry. So I will be teaching you um, the basics of lipids. I have picked the lessons or topics that I want you to know that are essential in your future lessons, for example, in clinical chemistry and also in medicine and in other subjects in your third year and fourth year. So I hope that you would listen to this lecture so that you can answer your exams and also excel and um, uh, take what you learned here in our lecture to your third year, fourth year, internship, board examinations, and then beyond. Okay, so let us start without further ado. Okay, so first, I'm gonna tell you what are lipids. So why do we need to study lipids? So, lipids are a chemically diverse group of compounds which are insoluble in water. So, 'di ba? You have heard the terms hydrophilic, hydrophobic. So, 'di ba pag insoluble in water, hydrophobic because they are compounds that hate hates water. Okay? They are compounds that hate water. Okay? Kaya sila hydrophobic. And the other term for hydrophobic compounds are lipophilic. 'Di ba? Yung mga hydrophobic compounds, yun yung mga lipophilic compounds. While yung mga hydrophilic compounds, sila ang lipophobic compounds. So, again, insoluble in water. So, hydrophilic or hydrophobic. 'Di ba? Hydrophobic. Then, kabaliktaran nun, it is lipophilic because they love fat or they love oil. 'Di ba? Lipo means fats, oils. So, yung mga hydrophobic compounds, itong mga lipids, they are hydrophobic and lipophilic. Okay? So, when you hear those terms, at least alam nyo what that means. Okay? What those words mean. Okay? Sige. So, I put there yung mga butter, milk, egg because they are rich sources of lipids. Okay? So 'di ba butter, margarine, so 'di ba ano sila, oily sila kasi they are actually oils are actually lipids. Okay? So maraming lipids sa kinakain natin. So what are the functions of lipids? So first, the fats and oils. So they are principal stored forms of energy in many organisms. So 'di ba sa mga humans, so 'di ba when we eat, kunwari we eat our food, so yung food natin is rich in energy, 'di ba? Our food is rich in energy. So maraming sugars, maraming fats. Tapos ang body natin, yung mga kinakain natin na energy or yung kinakain natin na mga sources of energy, our body tends to store those energy as fats. So kaya kapag kumakain ka ng marami, you will get fat because you will gain those fats from our food kasi yung body natin i-store niya yung energy kasi 'di ba when we eat a lot of food, so mas marami yung kinakain natin na energy than sa kailangan natin every day. So kapag may meron siyang sobrang energy na hindi naman kailangan ng ating body, lalo na pag sedentary tayo, 'di ba? So our body will store those energy or those calories as fat. Okay? Next, phospholipids and sterols. So they are major structural elements of biological membrane. So we will talk about that later. And the next, other lipids are hormones, intracellular messengers, coenzyme factors. Diba? They are very important in our body. So hindi lang siya fat na taba, adipose, yan lang ang lipids. So there are a lot of functions of lipids in our body. Okay? So with that, what are the three lipid functions that we will discuss? So first is storage lipids, then structural lipids in membranes, then lipids as signals, cofactors, and pigments. So alam nyo na yan by the name. So storage lipids, so yan yung ginagawa ng ating body to store energy. Kaya siya storage lipids. Next, structural lipids in membranes. Yan yung lipids that are found in our cell membrane. I think you have already discussed that cell membrane sa inyong histology, sa inyong anatomy. Paulit-ulit yan siya, yung membranes natin, di ba? Next, lipids as signals, cofactors, pigments. So we will discuss some important lipid functions later. Okay, so I don't know if I have told you already, but my basis for this lecture is Leninger. Okay, Leninger or Leninger. So, chapter 10, yung lipids na chapter. Okay? Sige. So, we will first discuss storage lipids. So, again, what are storage lipids? So, ito yung lipids na ginagamit ng body to store energy. Okay? To store energy. Kaya siya storage lipids. Okay? So, the first thing that we will discuss sa storage lipids is fatty acids. Okay? Are the fatty acids. Kasi itong fatty acids, actually, ito siya ang parang building blocks ng mga lipids natin. Okay? So, our lipids usually, they are derived from fatty acids. Most of them are derived from fatty acids. 'Di ba? Sa ating mga proteins, they are derived from amino acids, 'di ba? Pero sa ating lipids, most of them are derived from fatty acids. So ito siya ang ating i-discuss first because we want to see yung structure ng ating mga storage lipids. Okay? So we want to introduce to you students kung paano mag-name ng mga fatty acids. So what are the fatty acids? Ganyan. So let us go to our discussion. Okay? So the fats and oils used almost universally are used almost universally as stored forms of energy in living organisms, and they are derivatives of fatty acids. So you can see dyan sa ating right side kung yan yung ating mga fatty acids. Okay? So yung mga arachidic acid, stearic acid, palmitic acid, when you hear those terms, so you know fatty acids yan siya. 'Di ba? Ma-remember nyo or marinig nyo yung mga stearic oil, linoleic oil, may mga ganyan, 'di ba? Yung mga cooking oil natin. So they're actually fatty acids. So 'di ba, oils are fats, 'di ba? So yung mga ating fats and oils, they are the stored forms of energy. Okay? They are the stored forms of energy in living organisms. So they are derivatives of fatty acids. Okay? So remember nyo talaga na fatty acids ang ating gina-use ng body to have the stored forms of energy. Okay? So, what are fatty acids? So, fatty acids are carboxylic acids. So, can you remember what are carboxylic acids? Diba? Yan yung COOH. So, as you look there sa picture on the right, so diba yung blue natin na functional group, that is actually our carboxylic acid. C double bond O OH, 'di ba? So don't forget the functional groups because that is important for all our lessons in biochemistry and even in clinical chemistry. So fatty acids are actually carboxylic acid. So agree tayo kasi there is a carboxylic acid there on the right. So they have hydrocarbon chains. So what do you mean by hydrocarbon chains? Hydrogen, carbon kasi hydrocarbon, 'di ba? Look at the chain attached to the carboxylic acid. So they are actually chains of carbon and hydrogen. So fatty acids are actually hydrocarbon chains attached to a carboxylic acid group. Okay? So kaya sila fatty acid kasi meron silang carboxylic acid. Then they have a very long hydrocarbon chain. Kasi 'di ba, what have we learned with hydrocarbon chains? 'Di ba yung mga methane, basta pag CH lang siya all throughout, CH lang siya, 'di ba, they are insoluble in water. 'Di ba, they are hydrophobic. Tapos 'di ba, we know that lipids are hydrophobic. So kaya siya hydrophobic kasi mahaba masyado ang kanyang chain of hydrocarbons. 'Di ba, alam natin ang carboxylic acids, yung carboxylic group natin, it is hydrophilic, 'di ba? Yung mga may O oxygen, 'di ba, usually mga may oxygen, may sulfur, nitrogen, they are hydrophilic, 'di ba? Pero kita mo, isang part lang yung carboxylic acid pero very long ang kanyang hydrocarbon chain. That's why they get their hydrophobic property. Okay? So meron siyang hydrophobic property because of its long hydrocarbon chain. Okay? O, di ba? It ranges from 4 to 36 carbons. Okay? So, nice to know na 4 to 36 carbons tayo. Okay? So, there are actually two types of fatty acids, saturated and unsaturated. So when you say saturated, all of them have single bonds only. So look at the first photo, yung saturated letter A. 'Di ba wala kang nakikitang double bond doon sa hydrocarbon chain. So wag niyong salihin yung sa carboxylic acid ha kasi double bond talaga yan siya, yung C double bond OOH. So wag niyo yan isali. Ang tingnan nyo, yung hydrocarbon chain, 'di ba? The hydrocarbon chain, does it have or doesn't it have does it have a double bond or triple bond? 'Di ba wala? So all of them have single bonds. Okay? So yan yung tinatawag natin na saturated. Yung unsaturated, yan yung merong double bond. Okay? So look at the red colored groups, 'di ba? Or red colored group, 'di ba? Meron siyang double bond. Okay? So yan yung tinatawag natin na unsaturated fatty acid. So again, saturated, no double bonds. Unsaturated with double bonds. Okay? So, ano nyo ha? Remember nyo yan. So ito, this is mas ano siya, mas mag-explain siya what is what is saturated and unsaturated. Okay? So ito siya, 'di ba? Saturated, no double bonds. So look at the first photo or look at the first chain, 'di ba? Yung blue na chain. So 'di ba? Nakikita nyo, doon lang ang double bond sa carboxylic acid side. Okay? So, double bond talaga yan siya. And do not say na may double bond siya kasi nandoon sa carboxylic acid niya. Only look at the hydrocarbon chain. Okay? Next, there are two types of unsaturated fatty acids. So, first is the trans and the next is cis. Okay? Next is cis. So, how do you differentiate trans and cis na unsaturated fatty acids? So, you look at the double bond, 'di ba? Yung double bond na 'yan, yung double bond sa green. So let's first look at the green chain at the yung green colored chain. Okay? So 'di ba ang double bond niya, look at the hydrogen bonds doon attached sa carbon. So yung hydrogen, yan yung blue colored dots. Then yung white colored dots, yan yung carbon natin. So 'di ba? The hydrogen attached to the carbons with a double bond are opposite. Okay? 'Di ba opposite sila? Kaya trans sila na unsaturated. Okay? Then yung cis, 'di ba? Look at the double bond. So look at the double bond doon sa red colored na chain. 'Di ba? The hydrogen attached to the carbon na may double bond are on the same side. Okay? Are on the same side. So yan yung tinatawag natin na cis. So pwede na trans. So, para siyang transfer. So, nag-transfer siya ng side. Then, cis. Para silang sisters kasi magkatabi sila. Okay? Same side sila. So, yan yung tinatawag natin na trans fatty acid at yung trans fatty acid. Diba? Ma-remember nyo, may marinig kayo. Trans fatty acid. So, yan siya. Kaya siya trans kasi hindi siya transgender ha. So, trans siya kasi ang hydrogen bond niya ay ang hydrogen atoms niya opposite side. Okay? Then cis fatty acids same side. Then saturated with no double bond. Okay? So walang trans at cis ang saturated fatty acids ha kasi makita mo lahat talaga may hydrogen. Okay? So wala yan siyang cis and trans. Okay? So I hope you remember that ha. Okay. So next, how do we name fatty acids? Okay, how do we, parang ano siya, nomenclature of fatty acids. So first, you look at the number of carbons. Okay, look at the number of carbons. So, ang number of carbons natin starts with the carbon sa carboxylic acid. Diba? Look at the carbon number 1. Diba yan yung carbon sa carboxylic acid? C double bond O, OH. So, siya ang first carbon. And then, bilangin nyo na lang siya until the end of the hydrocarbon chain. So, for this example, there are 18 carbons. So, you put it number 18. Then colon, uh, then 18, then colon, number of double bonds. So, anuhin nyo, tingnan nyo kung ilan ang double bonds. Okay? Ilan ang double bonds. So, for this example, there is only one double bond between carbon 9 and carbon 10. So, ilagay nyo siya 1. Okay? 18, 1, then lagyan nyo yung delta sign. So, delta sign, yan yung triangle. So, hindi siya triangle ha. Delta yan siya. Delta. And then, superscript kung asan ang double bond. Okay? For example, dito, sa 9th and 10th siya. So, lagay nyo, delta 9. Okay? So, 18, 1, delta, superscript 9. Okay? So, kapag makakita kayo ng ganyan na nomenclature, so for example, bigyan ko kayo, 16, then colon, 2, delta, 9, 12. So, alam nyo na, ask ko kayo, how many double bonds are there? So, alam nyo, dalawa. How many carbons are there? 16. Where is a double bond located? Between carbon 9 and 10 and 12 and 13. 'Di ba? So, kapag balik-balik kayo dyan na pag-question, alam nyo, kasi alam nyo ang nomenclature, how to name fatty acids. Okay? Sige. So, ito, fatty acids. So, remember all of these, remember nyo ito. Most common fatty acids actually have 12 to 24 carbons, and they are unbranched. Okay? So 12 to 24 carbons usually. Okay? 12 to 24 carbons. So remember nyo, most of them have 12 to 24 carbons. Then most monounsaturated fatty acids, diba? From the term monounsaturated. So how do you interpret that? Mono means one. Unsaturated means it has a double bond. So kapag sinabihan kayo ng monounsaturated, one double bond only. Pero pag sinabihan kayo ng polyunsaturated, two or more double bonds. Okay? Two or more double bonds. Okay? So most unsaturated fatty acids have the double bond between the 9th carbon and the 10th carbon. Okay? So, 'di ba? Balikan natin yung first. 'Di ba? It has the double bond between the 9th and 10th carbon. So, yan siya. Most monounsaturated. So, halos lahat ng mga fatty acids with one double bond only has the double bond sa 9th carbon. Okay? So, again, dito nga sa ating example, so is this a cis or a trans fatty acid? So, I will leave that to you. How will you classify it? So, is it cis or trans? Sige. So, dito, the third bullet, other bonds of polyunsaturated, diba? Polyunsaturated, two or more double bonds. Fatty acids are generally at delta 9 and 15. Okay? So, what do you mean by delta 9 and 15? So, between carbon 9 and 10. And then, between carbon 15 and 16. Okay? So, look at the table there sa gilid. Okay? So, let's look at the table. So, these are actually the most common fatty acids. Okay? These are the most common fatty acids that naturally occur in our body. So, look at the carbons, 'di ba? They are between 12 to 24. So, 'di ba, dito sa carbon skeleton, 12 colon 0, 24, 'di ba? 12 to 24 talaga siya. So, tama yung most common fatty acids have 12 to 24 carbons. Kasi 'di ba, number of carbons man yung first na number, 'di ba? Then look at the second number, yung 0. So it means kapag 0, wala siyang double bond. So they are actually saturated, 'di ba? Yung first example diyan, 12, 0, 'di ba? 12 carbons, then no double bonds. So it is actually saturated fatty acid. Okay? Then look at yung 16, 1, then delta 9. So 16 carbons with one double bond. So it is mono unsaturated, then delta 9. So yung 9 meaning sa 9th carbon ang kanyang double bond. Okay? So look at I want you to memorize how many carbons. So yung carbon skeleton niya, and then its systematic name doon sa dito sa 12 to 24. Una muna tayo dito sa 12 to 24. Dito sa first 6 na fatty acids dyan, yung mga walang double bond. So I want you to memorize the carbon skeleton. So ilang carbons ang meron siya, and then the systematic name and the common name. Okay? So wag na yung mga Latin laurus, laurel plant. So wag na yan. I only want you to memorize. So for example, 12-0. Its systematic name is N-dodecanoic acid. So pag usually kasi mga fatty acids, they have the suffix noic acid or anoic acid. Okay, so look at them, 'di ba? Parang anoic acid lahat ng kanilang suffix. Okay, so 12 and dodeca, 'di ba? Dodeca means 12. Anoic acid, so dodecanoic acid. Then its common name is lauric acid. Okay, then 14 and tetradeca, tetra 4, deca 10, so 14 anoic acid, tetradecanoic acid. Then its common name is myristic acid. So hanapan niyo siya ng mnemonics itong lauric acid, myristic acid, palmitic acid, stearic acid until lignoceric acid. Okay? So yan yung ating mga very common saturated fatty acids. And then I want you also to memorize itong mga may double bonds, itong starting sa 16 1 delta 9. I want you to memorize its common name. Okay? Very important yan siya. Yung common name niya na lang. Huwag niyo na i-memorize yung mga cis 9 hexa ganyan. So don't memorize that. I only want you to memorize yung 16-1 delta 9 palmitoleic acid. So itong 18-1 delta 9 oleic acid. So if I ask you, how many carbons does oleic acid have? How many double bonds does oleic acid have? So you know how to answer it because alam nyo ang kanyang nomenclature. Okay? Ito, very important itong arachidonic acid. So it has 20 carbons, then 4 double bonds at carbon 5, 8, 11, and 14. So very important yung arachidonic acid ha, because that will be arachidonic acid is actually dyan ginaderive ang ating mga prostaglandin, ang ating mga leukotrienes. So we will discuss that later. Okay? Sige. So next, ito, polyunsaturated fatty acids. So 'di ba? As I have told you earlier, polyunsaturated fatty acids or PUFAs, they actually have more than 2 or more double bonds. Okay? So ito yung tinatawag natin ng mga omega. Kasi 'di ba, marinig nyo, rich in omega 3, rich in omega blah blah blah. So actually, itong omega 3 and omega 6, so ito kasi ang mga very common, omega 3 and omega 6. So it actually is a name for those for the double bonds ng ating PUFAs na they are near the methyl end. So 'di ba kanina when we were naming yung gamit yung mga delta, 'di ba galing tayo sa carboxylic acid, 'di ba? Galing tayo sa carboxylic group. So for example, dito itong carbon 9 natin sa double bond na location, 'di ba? Ang start natin ng 1 is galing sa carboxylic group, 'di ba? Galing siya sa carboxylic group 1 2 3 4 5 until 18. Pero dito sa mga omega, so actually itong omega, 'di ba? Omega means end, 'di ba? So actually when you name na gamit ang omega, it starts from the hydrocarbon chain. So from the methyl end. So galing ka sa pinaka-last. Okay? Galing ka sa pinaka-last. So kapag sinabi mong omega 3, it has a double bond at the third carbon from the tail, from the methyl end. So for example, dito na example natin, asan ang third carbon dyan? Di ba yung number 16? So nandyan ang ating double bond kapag sinabi mong omega 3. So look at the first photo, yung omega 3 dyan. Di ba? Hindi ka nag-count from the carboxylic acid. You counted from the end of the hydrocarbon chain or the methyl end. So first carbon, second carbon, third carbon. So kapag omega 3, the double bond is near the double bond is from the third carbon at the third carbon from the methyl end or from the hydrocarbon chain. Okay, end of the hydrocarbon chain. Okay, so at least alam nyo bakit siya tinatawag na omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6, kasi it is from the methyl end. Okay, from the end kasi omega, 'di ba? So third carbon, then pag omega-6, sixth carbon from the methyl end. Okay? So actually, ang omega-3 natin, yan dapat ang marami sa ating diet. And then omega-6, yan ang ating medyo ilesen. Kasi the optimal dietary ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is between 1:1 to 4:1. Okay? So dapat ang omega-6 natin only 1 to 4 times larger or more abundant than omega-3. Pero sa mga diets daw ngayon, it is closer to 10 to 30:1. So 10 to 30 times mas marami ang omega-6 than omega-3. Kasi dapat kasi ang omega-3 natin, kasi it decreases cardiovascular risk. So what do you mean decreases cardiovascular risk? So ginalesen niya ang mga heart disease natin, for example, mga heart attack, mga coronary artery diseases. So yung omega-3 natin, it promotes actually cardiovascular health. Yung omega-6 natin, it is not harmful kapag konti lang, pero pag masyado na siyang marami, mas marami siya than omega-3. So kapag more than 1 to 4 times more abundant siya than omega-3, it actually increases the incidence of heart diseases, okay, cardiovascular diseases. Sige. So we are done with fatty acids. Okay, so alam nyo na how to name fatty acids, what are fatty acids, then ano yung mga common names nila. Okay, so what is the structure of fatty acid? Diba, carboxylic acid, carboxylic acid with a hydrocarbon chain, long hydrocarbon chain. So let's go next to the storage form talaga ng ating fats, which is triacylglycerol or triglycerides or TAG. So kapag may TAG, good kasi triacylglycerol or glycerol. Okay? So hindi siya price tag. So tag means triglyceride. So same lang yan sila. Okay? So this is actually the structure of triglycerides or triacylglycerol. So it is composed of a glycerol backbone. So look at the glycerol backbone, diba? It is composed of 3 carbons with mga OH and hydrogen. So yan siya ang ating glycerol or glycerol. Okay? Then triacyl, 'di ba? Acyl actually means fatty acid. Okay? Acyl actually means fatty acid. So triacylglycerol. So 3 fatty acids attached to glycerol. Okay? So glycerol plus 3 fatty acid chains. So 'di ba? Look at the fatty acid. May carboxylic acid siya and then may long hydrocarbon chain siya. So it actually makes triglyceride or our neutral fat. Okay? And 3 water molecules. So matanggal siya, ma-dehydrate siya. So glycerol plus 3 fatty acids. So look at the fatty acids. So anong part ng fatty acids natin ang naga-attach to glycerol? 'Di ba yung carboxylic acid part natin, yung doon sa left, 'di ba? Siya ang naga-attach to glycerol to make triglycerides. Okay? So yan siya ang ating triglycerides. Triacylglycerol. 3 fatty acids attached to glycerol. Okay? So I hope you get it. Bakit yan ang tawag sa kanya? So TAG is actually the simplest lipid constructed from fatty acids. So 'di ba? Fatty acids natin, sinasabi ko, yun yung building block natin, 'di ba? So very lang siya, simple lang siya kasi 3 fatty acids plus glycerol. Okay? And it is also called fat or neutral fat. So actually, yung mga fats natin sa body, triglycerides yan sila. Okay? Tags yan sila. So neutral fat and fat actually is tag. Okay? Then usually they are mixed. So why do we call it mixed? So there are 2 to 3 different fatty acids. Okay? There are 2 to 3 different fatty acids. So when you say 2 to 3 different fatty acids, so yung mga naka-attach sa glycerol, they are actually 3 different or 2 to 3 different fatty acids. For example, yung first fatty acid made up of 16 carbons, then yung second fatty acid made up of 18 carbons. So it doesn't mean na 3 fatty acids yun, same sila lahat. Okay? So dapat mostly different sila. Okay? 2 to 3 different fatty acids. And they are non-polar and hydrophobic. Okay? They are non-polar and hydrophobic. So, ano sila? They repel water. So, ayaw nila ng water. Okay? So, why is it important to know that it is non-polar and hydrophobic? So, ayaw nila ng water. So, when you look at adipocytes, di ba? When you get a sample from your fats, okay? So, for example, galing siya sa tiyan, okay? Sa, ano siya, sa malaki ang tiyan niya. Then, we will look at the adipose tissue. So, we will look at the adipose tissue on the under the microscope. Okay, so ito under the microscope, these are actually adipocytes. Okay, adipocytes, other name is fat cells. Okay, fat cells. So ito yung nakikita natin sa ating mga fats. So look at the structure. 'Di ba para siyang clear sa gitna. So tinatawag nga siyang signet ring kasi para siyang ring. Yung nucleus niya, 'di ba? I know you already know nucleus, then cytoplasm niya actually nasa gilid lang. Okay? 'Di ba nasa gilid lang siya? Clear yung sa gitna niya. Kasi 'di ba triglycerides ang nasa loob niya. Kasi triglyceride ang nasa fat natin. So ang triglyceride, they are hydrophobic, non-polar. So they repel water. So i-repel niya lahat ng water kasi 'di ba our cells are made up almost entirely of water. So i-repel niya yung water palabas sa kanya. So yung nasa loob, lipid lang siya, triglyceride lang siya. Then nasa gilid ang kanyang cytoplasm and nucleus kasi nga hydrophobic and non-polar siya. So actually, yung nasa loob niyan, yung nasa gitna niyan, triglycerides yan sila. Siya yung fat, okay? So I know you already discussed this in your other subjects. Then ito. So bakit pala? So why would we study about triglycerides? So ano pala ang purpose niya sa ating body? So nagpapataba lang ba siya sa atin? So parang makainis na na ano kwenta ng triglyceride, 'di ba? So actually triglyceride are the stored forms of energy in our body. So how will our body use triglyceride? Kung hydrophobic siya, then non-polar siya, then ginarepel niyang everything. So actually, our body uses lipase. Okay, lipase. So lipase, where is lipase derived from? Diba? It is derived from the pancreas. Okay, pancreatic lipase. Okay, pancreatic lipase and gastric lipase. So there are two sources of lipase. So first is from the stomach, and then second is from the pancreas. So there is pancreatic lipase and gastric lipase. So anong ginagawa ng lipase? So lipase actually it breaks down triglycerides. Okay, it breaks down triglycerides. So 'di ba, lipase, it is an enzyme, 'di ba? It is a hydrolase enzyme. So what do hydrolases do? So they actually use water to destroy a compound, 'di ba? They use water to destroy a compound. So for this, lipase uses water to destroy triglycerides, okay? Lipase uses water to destroy triglycerides. Okay, so look at the first reaction, 'di ba? From triglyceride, it will be acted upon by lipase and water to produce a diglyceride with a fatty acid. So tinanggal niya lang yung isang fatty acid sa taas, and then aalis na yung fatty acid, and ang maiiwan, dalawa na lang na fatty acid attached to glycerol. Kaya diglyceride na lang siya. And then again, by lipase, it will become a monoglyceride. And then ang isang fatty acid naman matatanggal. Okay? So that is how our body uses triglycerides. Kasi it will get the fatty acid from the triglyceride. Tapos yung fatty acid, yun na naman ang gagamitin ng ating body to produce energy. Okay? So, kaya siya ginastore as triglyceride kasi tatanggalin, 'di ba? Fatty acids, they will make triglyceride kapag masyado ka maraming energy na kinain. Tapos when you need energy na naman, tapos wala ka masyadong kinain, for example, naga-fast ka, so our body will break down that stored triglyceride and then it will break it down to form fatty acids. Okay? So ano lang siya, back and forth lang siya. Okay, so why would we use tags as energy storage? So bakit hindi na lang glycogen? Kasi 'di ba, the storage form of glucose in our body is glycogen, 'di ba? And most of the food that we eat, ang energy talaga is in the form of glucose, 'di ba? Glucose jud ang ating main source of energy. Because triglycerides yield twice as much energy than carbohydrates. So it is more efficient actually. It has more energy than carbohydrates. And then next, triglycerides are hydrophobic and unhydrated. Okay, triglycerides are hydrophobic and unhydrated. So how will it benefit us using triglycerides as storage of energy? Kasi when we store a lot of glycogen will have water associated with it. Kasi glycogen is not hydrophobic. So imagine nyo, marami ka masyadong glycogen, so marami ka din masyadong water na store. Kasi hindi man hydrophobic ang ating glycogen, so masyadong maraming water sa iyong body. So hindi kaya ng ating body mag-carry ng masyadong maraming glycogen kasi it is associated with hydration. So maraming water needed ang ating glycogen. Pero ang ating triglyceride, they are hydrophobic. So it doesn't need hydration. So wala kang gina-carry na water even though you carry a lot of triglycerides. So 'di ba, ma-imagine nyo yung mga yung mga yung mga masyadong maraming adipose, 'di ba? Yung mga obese natin na mga obese people, mga kilala natin na obese. So they actually have a lot of triglycerides but they do not have a lot of water. So 'di ba, wala ka namang nakikita sa fats nila na parang mga water, 'di ba? Fats talaga siya. Kasi hydrophobic and unhydrated ang ating triglycerides. Okay? So kaya ng ating body mag-store ng masyadong maraming triglycerides without storing a lot of water. Okay? So I hope you get it. Bakit ating body So wag mo pagalitan ng ating body na nag-create siya ng a lot of fat kasi it is designed to do that, na fat talaga ang ating stored energy. Okay? So we are done with stored fats. So let's go to this figure. So what do we mean by partial hydrogenation? So actually, ang ginagamit ng ating mga companies na nagagawa ng oil, ng ating mga cooking oil, they do partial hydrogenation. So what does partial hydrogenation do? So actually, it forms trans fatty acids. Okay? So it forms trans fatty acids. And then, ang ating trans fatty acids, so they are the fatty acids that are bad. Okay? So when we say trans fatty acid, diba, we don't want trans fatty acids kasi bad siya sa ating body. Kasi it will increase the risk of obesity, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes. So there are a lot of bad effects ng ating trans fatty acids. And when there is partial hydrogenation, so yan yung ginagawa nila sa ating mga oils. Kasi kapag hindi nila gagawin yung partial hydrogenation, so madali lang ma-spoil or madali lang masira ang ating mga oil. Okay? So they do partial hydrogenation and then there is formation of trans-unsaturated fatty acids that are actually when in excess, that is harmful to our body. Okay? So I hope you get it. So ito siya. Yung trans fatty acids natin, so trans fatty acids will increase LDL. So what do we mean by LDL? So first, let's discuss what is LDL and HDL. So LDL is low density lipoprotein and then HDL is high density lipoprotein. Okay? So low density lipoprotein and high density lipoprotein. So LDL, low density lipoprotein, is actually what we call uh, the bad cholesterol. Okay, bad cholesterol. Then HDL, good cholesterol. So ang gusto natin is HDL. Pero trans fatty acids will increase LDL. Okay? And then look at the effect of LDL in our heart. So for example, let's look at the artery in our heart. So yan yung ating tinatawag na coronary arteries. So ito, i-zoom natin siya and look at the picture on the left. So, di ba, yung atherosclerotic plaque natin is actually made up of LDL. And then, di ba, trans fatty acids natin, it will increase LDL. So, kapag may LDL ka, marami ka masyadong LDL, yung mga fats mo sa LDL, it will actually make a plaque na i-narrow down niya ang ating arteries. So, imagine mo, i-block niya ang ating arteries. So, asan mag-flow ang blood? So, walang ma-flowan ang blood. Okay? So, walang pathway ang ating blood mag-flow from the arteries to the heart. And ang ating heart, need niya din ng blood. 'Di ba? Very siya, paradoxical siya na ang heart natin ang nagapump ng blood towards the other parts of our body. Pero our heart also needs blood. Okay? Wait lang. So our heart also needs blood. Okay? So yung mga artery na yan, so galing din yan siya sa heart natin. Okay? Then yung blood, that should go to the heart for the blood supply of the heart para mag-pump siya ng maayos. And then when there is increase in LDL, so there will be production of the plaque. And then yung plaque, i-block niya yung blood flow towards the heart. So yan yung tinatawag natin na myocardial infarction. Okay? Or heart attack. Okay? Myocardial infarction or heart attack kasi ma-block yung ating coronary arteries towards the heart. So walang blood na magpunta sa heart. Tapos mamatay yung muscle ng ating heart kasi walang ang blood na gapunta sa kanya. So 'di ba, need ng ating heart din ng blood. So kapag walang blood na makapunta sa kanya due to the occlusion of the LDL doon sa ating arteries, so that will cause our heart attack or myocardial infarction kasi wala nang mag-flow na blood towards the heart muscles, and then yung heart muscles na yun will undergo death, okay, necrosis. So yun siya yung tinatawag nating myocardial infarction. Okay? So we are done with storage lipids. So I hope you get the important concepts about storage lipids. So let's go to structural lipids in membranes. Okay, so we will talk about the membrane, the cell membrane, and the lipids involved in the cell membrane. So, this is the cell membrane, 'di ba? Ito yung cell membrane natin. So, there are actually lipids here. So, 'di ba? Phospholipid, lipid, cholesterol is actually a lipid. Okay? Then glycolipid. So, lahat ng mga lipids dyan, may lipid na term dyan, and cholesterol, they are actually lipids. So, we will look at the very important parts of the cell membrane na lipids. Okay? So ito yung tinatawag nating phospholipid. 'Di ba? The lipid the cellular membrane is also called the lipid bilayer. 'Di ba? Lipid bilayer. So I hope alam niyo yan na term, lipid bilayer, kasi it is made up of two layers of lipids. Kaya lipid bilayer. So, what do we mean by lipid bilayer? So, actually, lipid bilayer is two layers of phospholipids. Okay, phospholipids. So, yung phospholipids, ito siya, yung picture dyan sa taas, yan siya ang phospholipid. So, it has a polar head group and a fatty acid tail. Okay, it is a polar head group and a fatty acid tail. Then, ang polar head group natin, yung circle dyan, is actually hydrophilic. Okay, hydrophilic. It loves water. And then, itong fatty acid tail natin, fatty acids again are hydrophobic, 'di ba? So actually, itong isang phospholipid is a mixture of a hydrophilic group. Itong polar head group niya is hydrophilic, and a fatty acid hydrophobic group. Okay? So hydrophobic, hydrophilic. So mag-form siya ng bilayer. So yung mga fatty acid tails, yung dalawang fatty acid tails, it will go with each other. So ganyan sila. Kasi hydrophobic sila. Ayaw nila ng water, so mag-stick sila together. Tapos yung hydrophilic polar head group, yun sila yung outside and inside. Okay? So imagine nyo, itong lipid bilayer na ito, yung outside niya, yun yung outside ng cell. Then yung sa baba, yun yung inside ng cell. So kung ano yung nagaharap sa outside ng cell and inside ng cell are actually both hydrophobic groups. Okay? Then yung between nila, yung between ng layer are hydrophilic pala yung kanina. Then yung between ng layers is hydrophobic. Okay? So why is it important to have a lipid bilayer? Ito siya, this is the lipid bilayer is actually made to limit what substances can go into and out of the cell. Okay, kasi very mahirap maglabas dito kasi hydrophilic then hydrophobic, 'di ba? So mahirap mag-pass through this kasi two different properties siya. Okay? So this lipid bilayer is actually made to limit the transportation of molecules inside and outside of the cell. So kasi kapag masyadong maraming magpunta inside the cell, so baka ma-dysfunctional na ang cell. Tapos kapag marami din na maglabas, so anong maiwan sa loob ng cell, 'di ba? So this is actually very good ang sa kanya paggawa ng ating cellular membrane. Okay? So these are actually the membrane lipids. So look at the membrane lipids. So there are phospholipids. So there are phospholipids and glycolipids. So kapag phospholipids, so what is attached to the lipid? So phosphate or phosphorus, 'di ba? Then glycolipids, gly meaning carbohydrate, then lipids. So phospholipids actually have phosphate groups, and then glycolipids have carbohydrates attached to lipids. Okay? Sige. So let's go first to glycerophospholipids. So let's dissect the term glycerophospholipid. So glycerol, phosphate, then lipids, fatty acids or lipids. Okay? So ito siya. Look at the structure. So para lang siyang triglyceride na ang isang group na change lang. Okay? So, 'di ba? May glycerol backbone siya. Yung nandiyan sa left, that is actually a glycerol backbone, 'di ba? Yung 3 carbons. And then there are actually 2 fatty acids na naka-attach. And the first fatty acid is usually saturated and the second fatty acid is usually unsaturated. So, you know what is saturated and unsaturated, ha? And then the third group has the phosphate group. So yung P dyan, it is the phosphate group. And then another small molecule. So there are a lot of small molecules kung ano ang pwede mag-attach dyan. So di ba para lang siyang triglyceride, pero yung third niya lang na carbon sa pinakababa, o yung third niya lang na group sa pinakababa, imbis fatty acid siya, meron siyang phosphorus or phosphate, and then another small molecule. So, gets? Sige. So, ito. Look at the structure sa taas. Yan dyan sa may mga yellow and red color. Diba? May glycerol backbone siya, yung red. And then the first fatty acid is saturated. Okay, saturated. And then the second fatty acid is unsaturated. And then sa glycerol, yung third group na naka-attach sa kanya is a phosphate group attached to a head group substituent. Okay? So, yung substituent niya, there are a lot of possibilities kung ano ang pwede mag-attach dyan. Kapag hydrogen lang ang naka-attach dyan sa blue, so, yan lang siya. Yung backbone na red and yellow, so, hindi na yan siya mapalitan. So, glycerol and 2 fatty acids na talaga siya. And then, itong X dito, pwede siyang mapalitan ng mga groups. Okay? So, kapag H lang siya, ang nandyan sa X, so it is named as phosphatidic acid. What if ethanolamine ang nandyan? So, phosphatidyl ethanolamine. Okay? Pag choline, phosphatidyl choline. Okay? Serine, phosphatidyl serine. Then glycerol, phosphatidyl glycerol. Okay? Then, if inositol 4,5 biphosphate, phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 biphosphate. Okay? So ano nyo lang siya, dagdagan nyo lang ng phosphatidyl. Okay? What if the glycerophospholipid, the small molecule or the substituent is serine? So phosphatidyl serine. Kapag hydrogen, phosphatidic acid. Okay? Sige. So, next is, so I actually skipped a lot of the phospholipids, sphingolipids kasi it is not important na siya for your level. Pero, I included this na sphingolipids and phospholipids are degraded in lysosomes kasi 'di ba yung ating mga cell constituents or mga ano natin, mga organelles natin, 'di ba, they are actually degraded by the cell kaya para magawa siya ng new ones. Kasi 'di ba pag ano na siya, pag old na siya yung mga parts ng ating cell, i-degrade siya tapos papalitan siya ng bago for the cell to renew, 'di ba? Kaya yung mga sphingolipids and phospholipids natin which are found in the cell membrane are actually degraded by the lysosomes. 'Di ba yung lysosomes, they are the suicide bomb of the the suicide bomb organelle of the cell, 'di ba? Kasi they are the ones who degrade the cellular components. Ito, so I actually included this discussion or this photo because I want you to memorize all of these diseases kasi this will actually help you in your clinical chemistry, in your other subjects. Hindi ko alam kung ano pa ang mga other subjects na nag-discuss nito, pero this will help you in your clinical chemistry. So, look at the disease. So, first, sa generalized gangliocidosis, so there is a deficiency in beta-galactosidase. So, look at the enzyme na katabi niya. Okay, so for example, Tay-Sachs disease, 'di ba, na ano niyo na ito, na encounter niyo na itong Tay-Sachs disease. Tay-Sachs disease is actually the deficiency of hexosaminidase A. Okay? Hexosaminidase A. Then, Gaucher or Gaucher's disease is actually the deficiency of glucocerebrosidase. And then, Sandhoff disease is the deficiency of hexosaminidase A and B. So, kapag A lang, Tay-Sachs, then kapag A and B, Sandhoff disease. Then, alpha-galactosidase A, pag deficient, Fabry disease. And then, sphingomyelinase, pag deficient, Niemann-Pick disease. Okay, so I want you to memorize all of them because that will help you until med school, uulit-ulitin yan. Okay? So, memorize all of them. It is enough in your level na alam nyo lang kung anong enzyme ang deficient sa kanya. So, di ba, basta alam nyo na it is deficiency in the breakdown of sphingolipids and glycerophospholipids. Okay, phospholipids and sphingolipids. Okay, so next. So, memorize nyo ha ang mga enzymes. Next is sterols. So, sterols are actually part of the membrane. So, what are sterols? So, sterols are these compounds or these lipids that have 4 rings. Okay, so 4 rings A, B, C, D that are made up of tatlong rings. Yung ating ring A, B, and C are made up of 6 carbons. So, di ba, para siyang piatos kasi 6 carbons, 6 sides. Then, yung D natin na ring is made up of 5 carbons. Okay? Then, the D ring is attached to an R group. Okay? So, yan ang ating backbone ng mga sterols. Okay? So, basta, you have to know what is the backbone or what is the backbone of the sterols. Kasi itong ABCD rings na ito, uulit-ulitin ito sa mga sterols. Okay? Kasi ito nga ang backbone ng ating mga sterol compounds. So, these are actually the sterol compounds that are found in our body or the sterols that are found in our body. So, look at the top left photo. So that is actually cholesterol, di ba? Cholesterol, sterol, okay? So it is a sterol. So look at the structure, di ba? It is made up of A, B, C, D, 4 rings. Then yung number of carbons niya same. Then the D ring is attached to a long hydrocarbon chain. So yan yung R group niya. Okay? So that is actually cholesterol. Okay? So what is the role of cholesterol in our body? So it actually maintains the integrity of our cell membrane. So you can find cholesterol sa ating cell membrane, 'di ba? Dito, you can find cholesterol dyan, yung mga yellow. Kasi actually, cholesterol stiffens the cell membrane. Okay? It stiffens the cell membrane. So when you say stiffen, so parang ginabigyan niya ng integrity, so hindi siya madaling masira. Okay? So it is also a precursor for steroid hormones such as estrogen and androgens, and also precursor for vitamin D. So look at the photos sa bottom left. 'Di ba? That is vitamin D2, or also known as ergocalciferol, and then vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. So 'di ba nakikita nyo para siyang yung 4 rings pa rin, 'di ba? That is only parang may mga minor lang siya na changes. So vitamin D is actually derived from cholesterol. Okay? Kasi ang cholesterol siya kasi ang parang pinaka backbone, or siya ang pinaka most common sterol in our body, na siya ang ginagamit ng our body to make other sterols. So from cholesterol, gagawin siyang vitamin D2, vitamin D3, then it is also the precursor for other sterols in our body. So look at the ones on the bottom right. So cortisol, aldosterone, so these are produced by our adrenal cortex, 'di ba? So they are also they are also derived from cholesterol. Then estradiol, so where do you hear estradiol? Estradiol is an estrogen, 'di ba? It is actually a sex steroid. Then testosterone and progesterone, they are also derived from cholesterol. Okay? So I hope you see how important cholesterol is. So cholesterol is not bad. Not all cholesterols are bad. So our body needs cholesterol. Okay? Kapag excessive lang siya, doon lang siya maging bad. Kasi cholesterol can become vitamin D, can become estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, aldosterone. So marami siyang functions in our body. Okay? Also, cholesterol is the precursor for bile acids. So where do you see bile acids? 'Di ba, bile acids are produced by our liver, and then it is stored in the gallbladder. Okay? Kasi 'di ba, when we eat fats, so kapag mag-eat tayo ng fats, hindi siya directly ma absorbed by our small intestine. Kasi it needs to be emulsified. Okay? It needs to be emulsified. So itong bile acids natin that are derived from cholesterol, actually they are the ones who emulsify our fatty acids, or our fat that we eat, for us to um to absorb the fats. Okay? So kapag wala tayong bile acid, hindi natin ma-absorb ang fats. So yung mga bile acid natin, for example, cholic acid is derived from cholesterol. So you can see how diverse cholesterol is. Okay? So we are done with the structural lipids. Okay? Structural lipids. So what are the structural lipids? 'Di ba yung ating phospholipids, then cholesterol. Okay? So I hope you understand the how important structural lipids are in our cell membrane. Okay? So next, let us proceed to the last part of our lesson, which is lipids as signals, cofactors, and pigments. So ito yung mga other functions pa ng lipids aside from storage and cell membrane function. Okay? So first is our cellular messenger. Okay? Cellular messenger. So how are lipids functioning as cellular messengers? So ito siya. For example, dito you look at the photo sa taas. So 'di ba, it is a cell membrane with a receptor. Okay, that is a cell membrane with a receptor. So imagine nyo na lang may hormone or may signal from outside of the cell na mag-attach sa ating receptor. Okay? Mag-attach sa ating receptor. So, yung receptor, it will have G proteins. So, itong G proteins, siya ang parang mechanism ng ating receptor para mag-produce ng messenger inside the cell. Kasi, when, di ba, for example, may cell dito, tapos mag-attach yung hormone sa cell. So, hindi mismo yung hormone ang papasok sa cell. There are times na hindi yung hormone ang papasok sa cell to produce an effect sa cell. So doon lang siya sa cell membrane mag-attach. Then may receptor sa cell membrane. Yung receptor dyan, siya yung gagawa ng signal. So galing sa labas, gagawa siya ng signal. So para siyang ano ba? Para siyang carrier na yung hormone, siya yung parang nag-deliver, tapos siya yung gumawa ng signal. Then yung ating cell sa loob, so gagawa siya ng courier para mag-transport ng signal from the hormone. So ito siya, how is lipids or how are lipids important in cellular messengers? Kasi 'di ba itong PIP2, 'di ba? We have heard this earlier. This is phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate. Phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate. So, asa natin yan siya narinig? 'Di ba dito? Ito phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate or biphosphate. 'Di ba? Yan yung ating PIP2. So, actually, our body, 'di ba, from the receptor, so let's go back to the receptor. 'Di ba, receptor will have G proteins that will produce PLC. PLC is this will break down. PLC is also known as phospholipase C. So it will break down phosphatidyl inositol bisphosphate into inositol triphosphate or IP3 and diacylglycerol. O ito, fat na naman siya. Diacylglycerol, di ba? Diacylglycerol is composed of glycerol and 2 fatty acids. Okay? So again, balik tayo ha. Hormone binds into the receptor. The receptor uses G proteins to produce phospholipase C. Phospholipase C. So from the term pa lang lipase, 'di ba? Alam mo fats talaga ang kanyang target. So phospholipase C will break down phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate, which is found inside our cell, to produce diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate. Diacylglycerol is DAG, then inositol triphosphate is IP3. Okay? And then ang IP3 natin, it will induce release of calcium. Okay? It will induce release of calcium. And then ang DAG natin will induce pyruvate diacylglycerol or DAG will induce protein kinase C. So PKC is protein kinase C. And then yung PKC natin and calcium, sila yung magawa ng ating magawa ng effect ng hormone. Okay? So from the receptor to G protein, then the G protein will induce phospholipase C. Then phospholipase C breaks down phosphatidyl inositol bisphosphate or biphosphate into DAG and IP3. DAG will induce protein kinase C, IP3 will induce release of calcium, then protein kinase C and calcium will do the work of the hormone. Okay, so sila yung gagawa ng action ng hormone. So, 'di ba, very important ang ating lipids. Okay, so next. This is actually the production of lipids from arachidonic acid. Okay, so 'di ba, where have we heard arachidonic acid? So arachidonic acid is yan yung sinabi ko kanina na may 20 carbons. 'Di ba? Arachidonic acid is actually the source of our eicosanoids. Okay? Eicosanoids, they are 20 carbon lipids that are derived from arachidonic acid. Okay? Eicosanoids. E-I COSANOIDS, eicosanoids. They are derived from arachidonic acid. So there are two very important pathways of arachidonic acid metabolism. Okay? So the first one is cyclooxygenase pathway or COX. Okay, COX. So look at the right pathway. So nasa right, yung nasa right. Cyclooxygenase. So arachidonic acid, when acted upon by cyclooxygenase, will produce prostaglandins and thromboxane. Okay, prostaglandins and thromboxane. So ito siya. Sige, dito tayo. So, they are, di ba, eicosanoids, they are derived from arachidonic acid. So, arachidonic acid has 20 carbons with 4 double bonds. Okay? So, it is a PUFA. It is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. So, dito sa ating pathway, arachidonic acid, when acted upon by cyclooxygenase COX-1 or COX-2, will produce prostaglandins and thromboxanes. Okay? So, ano naman ang gagawin ng prostaglandins and thromboxanes? So, first, prostaglandins. So, PGE and PGF ang mga important natin ng prostaglandins. PGE is ether soluble and then PGF is phosphate, kaya siya F, phosphate, parang other language yan siya, soluble. So, actually, prostaglandins are used by our body in a lot of mechanisms in our body. So ang important dito is prostaglandins are used to increase the blood flow in the kidneys. Okay, so they increase the blood flow in the kidneys. Then they also make the protection of the lining of the stomach. Okay, protection of the lining of the stomach. And then also, ito very important, contraction of the uterine muscles. So, prostaglandins induce contraction of the uterus din. Okay? So, yan ang ating mga prostaglandins. So, ito siya sa mga isa sa mga products from arachidonic acid metabolism. So, 'di ba, very important ang arachidonic acid. Next, itong thromboxane, 'di ba? Galing din siya sa cyclooxygenase natin na pathway. So, dalawa ang gagawin niya, prostaglandins which are prostaglandin E and prostaglandin F, and then thromboxane A2. Okay? So, dito, arachidonic acid acted upon by cyclooxygenase 1 and cyclooxygenase 2 will produce thromboxane A2. So, ang thromboxane A2, this actually promotes platelet aggregation. 'Di ba yung platelets, sila yung nagagawa ng clots, 'di ba? So, it actually produces platelet aggregation. Okay? And then, so kapag mag-platelet aggregation, mag-form siya ng clot which can occlude the blood vessel. Okay? And then also, it can promote atherosclerosis or the production of plaques in yung kanina ba, yung sa heart attack, atherosclerosis, yan yung din siya, ang plaques, ang lipids, block siya sa ating vessels. Okay? And then vasoconstriction. So, vaso means blood vessel. Constriction meaning magliit. So, magliit ang ating blood vessels. So, ang parang net effect ng thromboxane A2 is ipaliit niya ang ating blood vessel or ipaliit niya ang blood flow. Okay? So, kaya 'di ba? Have you heard the drugs aspirin, that NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? So, they actually counteract cyclooxygenase. Okay? Yung aspirin natin and NSAIDs, they block cyclooxygenase. Kasi ayaw for example, yung aspirin, 'di ba, aspirin ang tinatawag, parang other term ng aspirin is blood thinner, 'di ba? Kasi aspirin blocks cyclooxygenase. Tapos pag ma-block ang cyclooxygenase, wala tayong production ng thromboxane. 'Di ba? Thromboxane will promote atherosclerosis, will promote platelet aggregation, will promote vasoconstriction. So kapag walang thromboxane A2, kaya siya mag-blood thinner ang tawag kasi wala tayong platelet aggregation, so wala masyadong mga clots, wala ding mga mag-block sa ating arteries, sa ating vessels. Okay? So yung ating aspirin and NSAIDs, they counteract cyclooxygenase para ang arachidonic acid natin hindi siya magiging thromboxane A2 and prostaglandins. Okay? Next. So the next very important pathway is the Lipoxygenase pathway. So arachidonic acid, so pwede siya cyclooxygenase, pwede din siya lipoxygenase. So kapag lipoxygenase ang mag-act sa arachidonic acid, it will produce leukotrienes. Okay, leukotrienes, look at that. Leukotriene B, leukotriene C, leukotriene D. So, ano yung mga leukotrienes natin? So actually, leukotrienes are involved in allergy and asthma. Okay? So yung leukotrienes natin, sila yung nag-produce ng bronchoconstriction. So, 'di ba, bronchoconstriction, constriction of the airways. Okay? Constriction of the airways, of the bronchi. So yung mga leukotrienes natin, it will induce bronchoconstriction and it will induce mucus secretion. So kaya sa mga asthmatic patients, sa mga allergy, 'di ba, mag-ubo-ubo, maraming phlegm kasi it will produce mucus secretion. Also, it will produce edema. So what do you mean by edema? Edema is the extravasation of water into the tissue. So lalabas yung water. For example, 'di ba sa muka, hupong ba? Hupong. So 'di ba sa muka, magka-edema yung mga may allergies. For example, makakain ng seafood. So, kapag makakain ka ng seafood, magka-edema ka. So, maghupong siya, yung water, pupunta siya sa tissue mo, kaya siya parang lalaki ang iyong muka. Okay? So, so yun siya, yun ang ginagawa ng ating mga leukotrienes. So, galing din siya sa arachidonic acid. Okay? Then, kaya tayo gumagamit ng mga Montelukast, yung mga leukotriene receptor antagonist. So sila yung mag-block sa leukotrienes to produce their effect. So kaya nagagamit ng mga Montelukast, Zafirlukast, yung mga Lucas na mga drugs. So sila yung ginatake ng ating mga asthmatic patients, sa mga with allergies, para to counteract the leukotrienes. Okay? Sige, so 'di ba, very important ang ating arachidonic acid. Marami siyang mga functions na gagawin sa ating body. So next, so the next important effect or important function of our lipids are steroid hormones. So 'di ba, nasabi ko na kanina ano yung mga steroid hormones. So ito yung aldosterone, cortisol, and then the sex hormones. So actually, these hormones are produced in the adrenal cortex. So you have already discussed what is the adrenal cortex. So 'di ba, yung adrenal gland natin, yun yung nasa top ng ating kidneys, 'di ba? So it is found at the top of our kidneys. So ang adrenal cortex natin, yun yung outer part. So 'di ba, adrenal cortex, outer part, adrenal medulla ang sa gitna. Pero we will focus on the adrenal cortex kasi the adrenal cortex is made up of 3 layers. Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. So glomerulosa ang pinaka-superficial, then reticularis ang pinaka-deep. So glomerulosa, fasciculata, reticularis. So these actually make our steroid hormones from cholesterol. Kasi 'di ba, cholesterol is the precursor of the steroid hormones, 'di ba? So zona glomerulosa makes mineralocorticoids, or the most important, aldosterone. Then zona fasciculata makes glucocorticoids, or cortisol, corticosterone, cortisone. Then zona reticularis makes androgens, or the sex hormones, which is DEAs, or dehydroepiandrosterone. DEA yan siya, DEA, DHEA. Okay? Which will be used to produce estrogen, testosterone. So later, ano din siya, magiging sex hormone din yan siya. Okay? So ang mnemonic namin dito is go find Rex, make good sex. Okay, go find Rex makes good sex. Parang ganyan siya. Go find Rex glomerulosa fasciculata reticularis. And then make good sex mineralocorticoids, aldosterone, glucocorticoids, then sex hormones. Okay? So go find Rex make good sex. Okay? Go find Rex make good sex. Sige. Pero yung iba, yung mga sensitive, make good spaghetti ang kanila, pero mas ma-remember ko talaga yung make good sex. Okay? So the first one is aldosterone. So 'di ba aldosterone is from the zona glomerulosa, 'di ba? It is from the zona glomerulosa. So what does aldosterone do? 'Di ba? Aldosterone is a mineralocorticoid. So mineral. So para siyang it is associated with minerals. So actually, hindi naman talaga siya mineral, pero it is associated with sodium. Okay, sodium. Kasi aldosterone acts on the kidneys. Okay, aldosterone will act on the kidneys. So sa tubules ng kidneys, it will induce sodium reabsorption. Okay, so ang gusto ng aldosterone is i-reabsorb lang ang sodium back into the blood. So, gets ninyo, imbis na iihi natin ang sodium sa kidney, gusto ng aldosterone will tell our kidney to reabsorb the sodium to the blood, pabalik sa blood. So, what will the reabsorption of sodium do? So, it will induce volume expansion. So, what do we mean by volume expansion? So, di ba, the sodium will go to our blood, di ba? Then, you have always heard the saying na where sodium goes, water follows. Okay? So, kapag ang sodium nasa blood, so pupunta din ang water sa blood. Tapos kung marami masyadong water sa blood, there will be volume expansion. So, dadami ang dugo. Okay? Marami masyadong water ang ating dugo. So, that will cause volume expansion. So, yan yung ginagawa ng ating body kapag dehydrated tayo. So our body will produce aldosterone para ang sodium i-reabsorb to the blood. So ang water natin, imbis na iihi natin ang water, we will reabsorb also ang water back to our blood. Okay, kasi where sodium goes, water follows. Okay? So kapag dehydrated tayo, ayaw natin i-excrete ang water. Gusto natin i-reabsorb. So aldosterone also contributes to the reabsorption of sodium and water. Okay? Sige. So, let's go to the pinakalas na ata talaga ito. Fat-soluble vitamins. So, the fat-soluble vitamins are vitamin A, D, E, and K. So, they are actually derived from lipids. Okay? So, ang vitamin B lang and C ang hindi fat-soluble. They are water-soluble. So, ang fat-soluble vitamins natin is ADEK or A, D, E, and K. So, the first one is vitamin D. So, vitamin D is derived from cholesterol. Okay? Derived from cholesterol. So, 'di ba, nakikita nyo sa ating skin, 'di ba, vitamin D, yan yung sinasabi nila na dapat magpa-sunlight tayo, magpa-expose tayo sa sunlight for us to get vitamin D. Kasi yung 7-dehydrocholesterol na nasa skin natin, it will be acted upon by the sunlight to produce vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. Okay? So, 7-dehydrocholesterol will become vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. Okay? Pero pwede din naman na ang food na kinakain natin will have vitamin D3. Pero yan yung mostly our vitamin D3 is derived from 7-dehydrocholesterol, which is acted by the sunlight to produce vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol. Okay? So, what is the importance of vitamin D3? So, vitamin D3 actually is involved in calcium metabolism. Okay, sa calcium siya. So, it promotes the absorption of calcium and phosphorus sa intestine. So, kapag marami tayong vitamin D3, sa kinakain natin, gina-absorb natin ang calcium. Okay, di ba we need calcium man in our body, in our bones, in our teeth, and in a lot of processes in our body. And also, it increases the reabsorption of calcium in the renal tubules. Kung sa sodium, aldosterone, vitamin D, calcium. Okay? So, gusto niya i-reabsorb ang calcium. So, hindi niya gusto iihi ang calcium. Gusto niya i-reabsorb back to the body. And it increases bone mineralization. So, kaya kapag may vitamin D deficiency, so, di ba yung mga children, pag may vitamin D deficiency, magkaroon ng rickets. Tapos, very prone to fracture sila. Kasi vitamin D increases bone mineralization. Okay? Sige. Next, vitamin A. So, vitamin A, yung mga retinol, retinal, isotretinoin, sila, mga galing din yan sila sa fats, okay? And they are used to, yung sa mga pimples good. So, yung mga vitamin A, isotretinoin, tretinoin, so they are actually vitamin A. And fat-soluble vitamins din yan sila. And then, vitamin E is an antioxidant, okay? Vitamin E is an antioxidant. So, remember nyo lang, vitamin E, antioxidant. So, yan yung nasa Myra E, ganyan, good. So, I don't know how it promotes magpaputi ng skin, pero vitamin E is an antioxidant and also anti-inflammatory. Okay? Sige. Then, vitamin K is used by our body to produce clotting factors. So, ano yung ating clotting factors? So, di ba, clotting factors are yan yung mga proteins sa ating body which will produce the clot. Okay? So kapag, for example, na nasugatan ka, so our body will produce a clot to block the wound. So i-block niya yung mga vessels sa wound para hindi tayo mag-bleed thoroughly. So kaya yan ma-stop ang ating bleeding kasi our body has clotting factors that will prevent the bleeding, prevent yung excessive bleeding. So our vitamin K, so ito, phylloquinone is vitamin K1. So yung phylloquinone is from plant sources. So yung vitamin K1 or phylloquinone from plant sources, then vitamin K2 or menaquinone is from animal sources. Okay? Then vitamin K3 or menadione is synthetic. So ginagawa yan siya. Yan yung synthetic vitamin K. So again, vitamin K1, phylloquinone, other name niya is, so mga quinone yan sila, is from plant sources. Then vitamin K2, menaquinone from animal sources. And then vitamin K3, menadione, so siya lang yung naiiba din ang pangalan, is synthetically produced. Okay? So vitamin K, so tingnan nyo dyan sa baba. Vitamin K will convert the prothrombin, factor 7, factor 9, and factor 10 into from inactive form to functional form. So kaya siya kaya siya needed to produce the clotting factors. Okay? So from inactive form, ang niyan, ang mnemonics niyan is 1972. So 10, 9, 7, 2. Prothrombin kasi is factor 2. Okay? Factor 2 ang prothrombin. So vitamin K is involved in the production of 1972. Factor 10, factor 9, factor 7, and factor 2. Okay? So it will produce the functional forms of those clotting factors. So important to know na vitamin K is used by our body to produce the clotting factors 1972 kasi may mga numbers mga ganyang clotting factors, but that is beyond our scope na, so that you will learn that at hematology. But very important to know, vitamin K 1972, factor 10, 9, 7, and 2. And then vitamin K is counteracted by warfarin. So 'di ba, warfarin is an anticoagulant, 'di ba? It is an anticoagulant. So warfarin actually counteracts vitamin K. Okay? So vitamin K is used used by the body to form clots. Okay? So I hope that you learned a lot in our lesson. So siya, very diverse kasi ang lipids natin. So there are a lot of lipids na different ang kanilang mga functions. So I hope na hindi kayo masyado nalito, marami kayong na-learn, and you use those learnings for the future. Okay, so good luck and God bless sa inyong quizzes and exams. So thank you everyone, and have a great day.